It's time for Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Ballblitz, the show that gives you helpful advice on how to live more independently. Now, here's your host, Janet Rose.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. We sure are glad you're here today for Sustainable Living with Glenn Ballblitz. We've got a new home that we're excited about. Grove Street FM has picked up the podcast and is helping us out with the show. And we're going to be able to have more guests in, and it's pretty exciting stuff, sir.
Absolutely. We have a good opportunity there.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time around here for sure. Of course, last week we were talking about spring and how spring is coming and things that we need to be doing to get ready for spring. Today, you're going to be talking about the survival garden. That sounds ominous.
Yeah, it sounds ominous, but it's really not. It's what you can do with limited resources, and we all seem to be having that lately. So I set it up to have low equipment needs.
Okay.
Easy to save the seeds year to year as a sustainable thing. To bridge the season from one season to the next, so you always have something fresh and growing in your garden, which is going to be real important, especially in the wintertime when you just don't have a lot of that stuff.
And a lot of people think that once fall comes, you're done and there's nothing else you can grow, but you can. We're in zone 7. There's a lot of things you can grow.
Well, most people will do the big harvest, like you said, from July to September, and they're pretty much done. But that's actually a second season for planting cold crops a second time, or planting the spinaches or that kind of thing, because weather's cooling off. So some plants do well in lower temperatures, and that's for us, that's a second planting season. Beans do really well for a fall garden. You wouldn't think that, but they do. So that's kind of how I set this up. So it's easy to do, easy to save the seeds, and how you're going to store all this stuff. So that's how I set this whole list up of the survival garden. So we'll start out with corn. If you're going to grow corn, you might want to consider the heirloom stuff. Now, one of them is called Bloody Butcher. Now, that's a terrible name. But the second one would be the Ohio Blue Claridge. Now, these things have been around a couple hundred years. They're a very stable strain. They can be used for eating purposes for humans. Mm-hmm. They can be stored away dried. They can also be ground for corn meals and flours. They can be used for chicken feeds or cattle feeds. So they're an all-around corn that you can use. Now, you can grow field corn for your chickens and all that kind of stuff, but you're probably not going to want to eat it. It's just not very palatable.
I will say that I have a good friend that just has a knack for growing beautiful corn. I mean, it just always does very well for him. He gifted us with a ton of it because we don't really have room to grow corn. But some feed corn got over in with it.
It happens.
And my husband, God bless him, missed it and is just shucking away. And I was like, whoa, don't put that with the other corn. Because you're right. It's pretty tough stuff.
It just has a starchy flavor to it and that kind of stuff. But as a kid, we'd go out into the neighbor's field corn when it was young and eat it anyway. We didn't care, but it's just what we did. But,
to be a child again.
Yeah. There's also popcorn that you can grow. And
my mama and papa always grew it.
Oh, yeah. And there's different types of popcorns out there, but most of it is an heirloom, and it's a good snack. It's something that you can have in the dead of winter, is pull out a bag of your popcorn and pop it on the stove, and that can be done on a wood stove. And we actually have a corn popper from that era that I can remember putting on, and that means, golly days, I'm getting old. But
well, of course, we had Grandma just had a big old kettle. that she would do it in, a big old heavy cast iron kettle, and we would have to take turns, shaking it and moving it, shaking it and moving it. But I don't think there was anything that tasted any better.
And it gets to going good, and you want to look.
Yeah, but you can't.
So you open it up, and popcorn goes flying, and Mom would say something. Well, she'd say something.
You know better than that.
Yeah, well,
something along those lines.
Yeah, something along those lines, but it wasn't quite like that. So the stalks and the fodder, they can be all saved and fed to your cattle, your chickens, your goats, and that's all things we're going to have to start doing, is using every bit of what you're getting out of your garden as a resource.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons to grow just corn. Then you have beans, the Kentucky pole beans. You can dry those out. Mm-hmm. You can use them for snap beans, just typical can of beans,
And that's the other thing. Some people think that if it's a shell bean or a dried bean, that you can't eat it fresh, but you can.
Well, when they're tender,
right,
you can
young.
Eat about any of the beans, really, mm-hmm. and most people don't know that. Some people don't like the string beans because they have the string in them. Well,
right.
if you pick them a little earlier, that string is not developed, and they snap real good. And you always want to snap your beans while they're fresh, so they're not like a piece of rubber. But that's date night at our house. We sit around and snap beans together. That tells you where my social life is.
Whether or not they're a keeper.
Yeah.
They don't know how to shell or shuck a bean. Maybe you want to move on.
So you let your beans grow a little longer, and you end up with this leathery bean, but you peel it open, and the bean's still green. Now, that was thrown right into soups. You could eat straight from that into a soup. Just shell them. They pop open fairly easy. Let them go a little longer to the end of the season where they're good and dry, and they start to rattle. Some of the old people would pull them and hang them on the fence, let them dry, hang them upside down to let that moisture go out, and then they shell them dry, and then you store your beans. Now, there's 3 good ways to use the string beans, and the Kentucky pole beans is a real popular one for that because they are an heirloom, and they'll grow back, and you'll get what you get every year. Now, remember, you're going to be saving some of these seeds. So whichever bush or pole is doing the best, don't pick that last. Let it go all the way to a dried bean, because you're going to save that for the following year. Well, we're talking about a survival garden here. You're going to have to be able to duplicate that year after year after year. Kind of rough to think about it in that way, but welcome to 2024.
Right.
All right, winter squash. And squash can also be the pumpkins, the pie pumpkins. I'm not talking about the giant jack-o'-lanterns, but
right.
A pie pumpkin. Now, they store very well. You have to have a decent place to store them, where you have stable temperatures, all that kind of stuff. And I suggest you start finding a place for this kind of storage, including your potatoes and that kind of things, where you can keep these things in a stable environment, and they'll winter over very well. And you get into some of the squash, the Seminole. It's a smaller type of squash, a little round one, very sweet. The butternut squash, everybody knows about it.
Oh, yeah.
It has a good flavor, good texture.
And it's good for sweet or savory. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's spaghetti squash and that kind of thing that you can make different recipes from that are give you a variety. That's what we're after here.
Right.
You can live off of beans and rice, but you really won't like it after about the 4th week. So you need to think about a little bit of variety. And these squashes we're talking about live a long time. Now, I just described to you corn, beans, and squash. Now, they refer to those as the 3 sisters, and they can be planted together. If you read about them a little bit, you let your corn get up, and then you plant your pole beans. The poles run up the corn and give it some structure so you don't have to build some apparatus to hold your pole beans. Then the squash, because they have a wide leaf, tend to suppress the weeds. anything that I can do to suppress the weeds
right.
that's not chemical, that's good for me. So those the three sisters. Did you know you can slice squash thin and dry it, dehydrate it?
I don't think I did know that. Like any squash?
Any squash that has a fairly decent density, you can slice thin and dehydrate.
So like acorn squash or butternut or any of those.
So if you have the ability to dry this stuff, that's another way to preserve, other than canning it. Canning tends to soften up a lot of foods, but the drying does real well. We've been eating a lot of dried shredded potatoes to make hash browns, and they're the best darn hash browns I've ever had.
Yeah,
and they're from dehydrated potatoes.
Right.
So that there's lots of methods to do this stuff, and you're going to need to do it maybe without electricity. Can you do that? Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about here, a survival garden, things that you can store without the electricity.
Well, we're going to continue that conversation on survival gardening. It's not just about survival. You can enjoy this process if you'll let yourself. We'll be back. Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Boblitz.
Is that the hit?
Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Boblitz. Now, here's your host, Janet Rose.
Well, welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. We're talking about a survival garden, which sounds ominous, but it's just about, having a garden that requires, the basics, the bare necessities to get it done. And many of us just might need that,
It gives you the ability to harvest your seed and plant next year. I mean, maybe we should have called it sustainability garden, but okay, that's a lot to write out on my notebook here.
But you say that, but I think if you're going to get serious about it, that's what it's like. How does that garden survive year to year to year? What happens if Amazon's no longer available, or you just got to think about those things.
Well, have you seen the price of seeds?
I know, right?
To buy 10 seeds of cantaloupe or something like that, you're still paying the $3 and $4, and when you used to get 500 seeds in there. So guess what's going on here, folks? So you want to be able to do this yourself. To be that sustainable person, to make sure that you can thrive in tough times.
And you also have to think about that when you're selecting what's going to go in your garden, because not all seeds can be saved.
Correct.
If you start with the wrong one.
You've seen it say hybrid on your little packets. You can plant the seeds from that crop, but they're not going to come back like you want. They're going to revert back to some rootstock or some form that was interbred to give you that seed. Now, that's not what you want to do. You want to have something that you can count on. If you plant Bloody Butcher corn, you want it to come back next year as Bloody Butcher corn and not field corn. The hybrids, that's exactly what happens. They mix the two pollens together and create a hybrid. But you can't get a good crop out of the second planting. It's just not going to happen for you. So buy your heirloom seeds from somewhere reputable or a seed trading or a seed bank, and there's a lot of those going on right now.
Yeah.
So get involved in them. If you have a bounty crop, how about you save some seeds for the next guy and trade out, because you may need that guy,
right?
And he may need you. So start saving your seeds on heirloom stuff. We'll get into peas. Now that's a legume, and peas are like beans. They actually fix nitrogen to the soil, which builds your soil. If you plant corn, which takes a lot out, you need to have something right in behind it or with it that helps bring that nitrogen into the soil, where you don't have to buy fertilizer to put in it. You see what I'm saying here? Mm-hmm. This is a self-feeding system, basically, if you plant your beans or your peas with your corn. So that's smart to do. There's sugar peas, snow peas. The snow peas, you can just pick them while they're young, and they saute up real good. You eat pod,
or you can just eat them right off the vine.
Oh, yeah.
May or may not have done that.
Shelling a pea for fresh peas, that's a chore, man. I don't enjoy it, but I will do it just for, a cup full of peas.
I love them, but they are a lot of work. Mother used to plant a row just for me because she knew I loved them so much. But for the most part, she didn't fool with them too much.
They're an excessive amount of work for a small reward until you eat them. And then you go, wow, that was worth it. But it's never seemed like it's worth it while you're shelling them. It's just not. But
for that brief little, as I work through them.
There's a lot of things in life like that, but you still do them anyway. But you can let those dry just like you do your beans. That'd be a good wintertime meal. Peas and ham. Green peas and ham, or split pea and ham. Yeah, split pea and ham. That's one of my
your favorite soups.
Yeah, it was just a wintertime thing that my mother always did. The kale, kale and the collards. These are cold crops. They'll do well in early spring, and they'll do well in late fall, and they'll actually take a pretty good frost. So, that's a good, super nutritional thing to plant in your garden. I mean, it's all about nutrition anyway, nutrition and taste. And there's so many varieties of this stuff. And a lot of them are heirloom varieties. So you need to search those out. And they are, like I said, super high in nutrition. And that's going to be real important to your diet, because your diet is definitely going to change when the crap hits the fan. So be thinking about that, because you can't get some of these nutrients without having these greens. And it always feels good to have those greens. I mean, has there ever been a time where you go, I just want a salad and I don't know why?
Right.
That's your brain telling you need that nutrition.
You need it. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the cold crops. Then we'll move over to what else can you plant for, and it's easy to grow, easy to harvest, easy to store. What about sunflowers? You ever grow sunflowers? The big mammoth sunflowers? Some of those seeds are bigger than corn seeds, and we've grown several varieties. Now, there's a lot of things you can get out of the sunflower. One is the edible seed itself, obviously, but it's a real good chicken feed. It's almost a complete protein within that one seed.
I was going to say, if you can keep the birds out of them.
Well, you have to harvest them early, and
you can share a few.
Yeah, I mean, if you plant an abundance of them, and they grow really fast, and some of them are 16 inches across. That's a lot of seeds. Now, the little finches come in and help themselves. You can throw rocks at them, or you can go, okay, well, share.
Yeah, that's right.
So plant 2 extra, plants for the finch to come in and eat.
So they can have some.
That's right. Then your stalks are actually burnable.
Sunflower stalks.
Sunflower stalks are a real good starter for your for your fire. Because that way you don't have to split a lot of kindling. You just chop them up, and the biomass itself, the large leaves, you can pull them off, dry those, and the cattle will actually eat them. They're actually pretty high in nutrition for the cattle. So, and I read an article about what's it called, tree hay. Have you seen that?
Tree hay?
Tree hay. Now, the poplar trees, when you go and cut a tree down, 10,000 little sprouts come off the stump, and there it is. And this has been going on since Roman times.
Okay.
They're harvesting that and actually drying it like hay. They bundle them up, hang them in the barn, then in wintertime you feed it back to them. Now, this lady turned out a couple cattle, some sheep and some goats onto this area that had all these sprouted stuff everywhere, maples and poplar.
Sure.
And there was grass everywhere. Where did they go? They went straight for those saplings. They went straight for the poplar.
Because they knew.
Because they know. I mean, they can smell that stuff. They know what nutrition is, and they go for it. Goats like multiflora roses, because there's a mineral in there that you can't get anywhere else. I think it's like selenium. It's one of the rare earths.
Okay.
And they will just absolutely clean them off. That's why you always tie your goats up next to those wild roses. because they'll clean them right up.
Wow.
Because they're after the nutrition.
It's interesting. Goats are so interesting that way because they'll get started on something and it's almost like they've got a chart somewhere. All right, we're going to take all of this out and then we're going to go to this one. If you've ever watched them, it's really fascinating.
Deer do the same thing.
Okay.
Moose do the same thing. Moose, I think it's called Algonquin, which is Indian name for twig eater. Okay. And that's what they're doing. They're after the minerals because all the grasses are gone. So they're after nutrition, and they know that that's in those little stems.
Where it is.
So
interesting.
Just a little tidbit information there. Tomatoes, of course, you're going to plant tomatoes.
Yeah.
There's so many varieties, and there's a lot of heirloom stuff out there. Get this stuff and plant it. It's self-pollinating. They don't tend to cross-pollinate very bad, so that's a real good thing. There's so many things you can do with the tomatoes: drying them, canning them, all those things, making tomato paste. So that's one of my recommend.
My problem is deciding which ones to plant because there's always so many that I want, and I need to be more disciplined in that way.
We like the Romas for the paste.
Sure.
They have a good creamy salt. They're good and dense. They hold up well. The Beefmaster, is really good if you want to slice one off onto a sandwich. There you go. They can real nice. And the smaller ones, little Tommy Toes, that pop up in your garden from last year, they're reverting back to what they originally were. And they have an intense flavor. That's what I like about the little cherry tomatoes and the Tommy Toes, we call them.
Yeah.
But, those were all super high in nutrition, and they just do well. Now, I wouldn't want to can cherry tomatoes because that'd be a lot of work, but regardless of that, tomatoes.
I notice you've got okra on here as well. Now, when I think of things to grow, I don't really think about okra that much, but it can be a pretty handy thing to have.
Well, some people don't like the okra because it's slimy.
Well, we always fry it, so that's never a problem.
Okay, well, some people like fried okra, but it has to be tender and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually a thickening agent in okra. So if you have a soup or something and you throw okra in, it tends to thicken it up. Well, people don't think about that. Now, fried okra, that's a good Southern thing.
It is.
That's
pickled,
probably,
good pickled. And
then you can pickle and ferment. I don't know if anybody's ever seen pickled okra or fermented okra.
Yeah.
Now, it changes the texture a little bit, and it makes it, I don't want to say more palatable because I like okra, but that's just another way to do it. That's just another form of being able to preserve this stuff that you probably didn't think about. Then we move on to onions and garlics. We use a lot of onions. It's just a staple.
It's amazing how many, if you cook, it's amazing how many onions you use.
We probably go through several hundred pounds a year just by the way we cook and our recipes. So to that, it's very important. Now, there's storage onions, there's green spring onions, and all of them are kind of different, but you can get them all in heirloom. There's one called the Egyptian walking onion, and it's been around for a couple thousand years. And they multiply so good that if you plant these things and don't harvest the bulb itself, it's going to put out a whole onion set on top. Instead of a little flower up there, it'll be a whole nother set of onions, little baby onions. You can take those and just keep replanting them, so you're never having to buy the onion sets. One thing I like about the Egyptian onion is the greens are as flavorful as the bulb.
Okay.
So in the middle of the winter...
Because you don't always get that.
Right.
Yeah, it's usually one or the other.
In the middle of winter, right outside the kitchen door is a patch of these things. And my wife, in the middle of winter, we can go out there and take off some of the greens because they have ether in them, so they don't freeze. So you whack them off and you put them in your eggs. And now you have, what tastes like fried onions, but it's the actual green. So that's a real good one to get a hold of, get a patch started, share. I mean, they're real hard to kill too. That's why we like them. They weather over real well too. In drought conditions, they just get hotter. They don't care. Cold, heat, and that's the kind of things we're talking about planting. Things that are just very stable and tried and true. Then we move on to spinach. Spinach is super high in nutrition. Again, this is nutrition thing, and it's winter hardy. If you can have that going in the middle of winter, and have a patch of that's that green that I was telling you about of that live nutrition that's so important to your health, to your immune system. Staying healthy is going to become extremely important in the future, maybe near future, the way things are looking.
Right. Get healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah. Potatoes. Now, everybody's got their own favorite in a potato. Now, if you want to store a bunch of potatoes and that kind of thing, I recommend a Kennebec. It doesn't sprout as fast, around springtime. It stores real well. It cleans up real good. You don't have to tend them much. They don't have root rot like some of the hybrid stuff that we buy. Kennebec. So try those, get those, and you can save them for your seed potatoes. Now I suggest that you change or trade out Kennebecs on the third year. Now why is that? Because they'll build up a virus in them, and all of them have it. So if you trade it with your neighbor who has a different dirt over in their garden,
okay,
and you trade them back and forth. Now this is where you're going to have to start working together, and that's going to be important for everyone. Trade back and forth so you don't weaken the strain of all your vegetables.
Okay.
So the idea of trading seeds and trading potatoes is smart. Mm-hmm. So they don't build up those resistance.
So it keeps it healthy. Yeah.
Exactly. You're keeping that strain strong, and they thrive off of adversities. They'll develop almost immunities to it.
Uh-huh.
Now, some people will call that a land race, where it is developed along with the most adverse conditions, and it still survived. That's the guy I want.
Right,
you want
exactly.
the strongest out of her, not just the prettiest. Sweet potatoes. Our favorite is probably going to be the Beauregard, and that's the typical potato that you see in the Carolinas. They grow really fast.
And man, they store great.
Yeah, they're pretty much indestructible.
I mean, we would roll them in newspaper and keep them under the bed. Was it in the back bedroom? Because it was really cold back there.
Okay.
Because there was because we heated with wood heat, and so in the wintertime, that far back bedroom, the guest room, the guests never stayed long. We would roll them up, put them in a box, and put them under the bed.
If that's the driest, coolest place in the house, that's exactly where you should have stored them.
And that's my point. You were saying you need to identify that depending on how your house is laid out or how you heat. It might just be one of those places.
I'm thinking the band Three Dog Night had a bedroom just like that.
Probably.
Three Dog Night. Go there. Everybody goes, oh, that's a band. No, that's a cold back bedroom right there.
That's exactly right. You want all three of the dogs on you, for sure.
All right. Did you know the greens are edible in sweet potatoes?
I did not.
Greens are edible. You can actually fry them up like you do collards.
Are they palatable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have that grassy taste like you would think. Mm-hmm. Which was pretty shocking.
I just learned last year that hostas leaves are edible. Like hosta shoots, you can grill them like you do asparagus or anything. Didn't know.
Yeah, the younger, the more tender they are, the better.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
If you ever see the hosta come up in the spiral, when they first.
Well, yeah, the little shoots.
Right.
The lady I saw, that's what she was doing.
Right.
Were the shoots.
And they have a different flavor, but they're very good. It's a good stir fry.
But there's a lot of people out there with hostas, and they have no idea that they are edible. Just like I didn't know the greens of a sweet potato was edible. Crazy.
The deer know that the hosta are edible.
Yeah, they do. You got that right. That's right.
Deer are also edible, so that worked out.
Sweet potatoes are cool in a lot of ways, though, for sure.
Now, there's a lot of varieties that are Oriental sweet potatoes.
Okay.
They're purple inside. There's all kinds of stuff. And like the Peruvian sweet potatoes, they're starting to show up here.
Well, and you'll see them a lot of times in arrangements even. They'll put like the purple ones in a trailing display, flower display.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
there's all these varieties are coming from all over the world just because of the way our shipping industry is set up, and some of them do very well here. There's a couple gingers now that are no longer tropical, but they'll survive here and do okay. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can get your hands on,
right.
And if you can propagate that for people, that'd be great, because you may have a survival food that no one else has,
right,
that doesn't do well somewhere else but does do great in Virginia. So start looking for this stuff. Try it out. See what you can come up with.
Let's talk about briefly before we have to go, any classes or things that you have coming up. Where are we on some of that as spring gets ever closer?
Our classes are being formed as we talk about. The gardening class, there's a lot of classes out there right now. It's kind of like a competition, and everybody is fighting for participants. Well, it doesn't matter who it is. Get out there and get involved, whether it's one of our classes or one of the others. Bedford County's doing some. Some of the local militias are actually starting to do this because they want their community to survive. You know, everybody thinks bad about militias, but these militias are just people in your community that have gotten together to protect each other. That's all that is. Don't believe the hype that you hear about some of this stuff. The police department's actually promoting, and this is in Bedford, being sustainable. They want to be sustainable too. So we need to start working together a lot more. And as you said about the classes, we're going to post on, it should be this week, some of the classes we're going to have upcoming. So
if you haven't
watch in Facebook and you'll see them.
Yeah, if you haven't done that, then you need to do that. Go and like the Facebook page, just Sustainable Living Glenn Boblitz, and it'll pop right up. You can also text us if maybe you don't do Facebook, and if you don't, that's okay. Text us at 434-248-0704 and just say, I want the Sustainable Living schedule. And we'll get it to you that way. Shoot us your email, or we can text it to you. But communicate with us so we can get that information to you.
We're taking our cues from you. If I hear that you need this or hear that repeated over and over again, you can believe that's what we're going to do. So if you want to hear a class or have a class, if we don't have it, I'll send you somewhere where you can get it.
Yeah.
And that's the point here. It's not about us here on this podcast. It's about you. And if we're not all working together, then we're working apart, and that's not good.
And tell us what you need. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Another good show.
You've been listening to Sustainable Living Made Easy with Glenn Boblitz, the show that gives you helpful advice on how to live more independently. If you have a question for Glenn, you can text it 434-248-0704, or you can join our group on Facebook by searching for Sustainable Living